Hello, everybody, and welcome to Declutter Me, a podcast about organizing and decluttering your life. And hello, Shelina.
Hi, Chirag. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Not bad, not bad. So you're in an excitable mood today. Want to tell the listeners why?
Oh man, this is gonna sound so bad when I tell them like it's because of my email inbox. I don't know if that's really the kind of tone we want to set for the kind of person I am. But here we are.
Well, there are some listeners that just listen to hear what you have to say. So today, listeners,
That's true.
it's all about Chirag. Yeah, we've had reviews saying, "I love listening to Chirag's show," and I'm like, "Okay, great, fine, okay, yeah, Chirag."
I mean, it's really nice that you're not bitter about this at all.
No, I'm not bitter. So today it's Chirag show on Declutter Me, and
Yeah, why not? I'm the guest. I'm not expert, but whatever. I'm the guest on the show talking about email. So we'll treat it that way.
How many emails do you have in your inbox?
Lots. And this is something we've come up that has come up on our previous episodes as well. As I'm not someone that does like an inbox zero approach, so I treat my inbox as like the place where, because I use search to get to emails and things. So I as much as I do have folders and labels, I don't excessively use them because it's just added work and it kind of in the zone of things. But anyway, so one of the recent developments, which happened a couple of weeks ago, is we changed email systems to this new service, and so that's kind of what I want to talk about. And a lot of their approach towards email is to try and modernize some of the handling of email in some way, and a lot of it kind of touches, on some of the things we've talked about. So that'll be an interesting kind of look at, how they're dealing with email, and then sort of this is what actually the reason why we picked this as a service for us to use as a company as well. Although I'm also playing around with it in terms of personal email.
Right. Okay. And you want me to move on to it as well one day. So you're going to try and convince me today why this one will be better than using the Apple Mail that I am using currently.
So funnily enough, and you've kind of like kicked off a good question here because it's not the same thing, but it's that I really did not think that was the purpose why I was talking about this. I just wanted to share with listeners like why we moved to the service and why I thought it was just an interesting or a nice approach in the sense that, because I do think that as much as, we've talked about email before, and one of your suggestions has been, you come to the end of the year, you create a folder with the previous year name in it, dump everything away so that you kind of clear the clutter, and then take your time to kind of clear through that. And that's symptomatic of the fact that a lot of people have very, very long flowing inboxes. And the thing I like about this new service, it's called Hey, is that it kind of embraces the fact that people have long flowing inboxes and tries to work within that, as opposed to kind of say, okay, we're going to come up with a new organization system, because I think that's where it gets tricky, right? Because you kind of, how do you fit it with my habits when I operate email a certain way, irrespective of how good your organization is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I can understand that for a lot of people, they do have thousands and thousands of emails, and as much as we talk about file act toss, and as soon as emails come, if it's spam, unsubscribe and do all that. There are still people who will have a lot of emails in inbox, and it does get too much. And as I'll say, move it into the yearly box and then delete it. But if this is a way to help people who have built this habit to have a long flow of emails, then this is great.
So first of all, let me just kind of give you some context here. So that this is a service that was made by a company called Basecamp. So they've been around for a little while. They used to be called 37 Signals. And they've been around for like a decade or so, and they're primarily like it's project management tools for companies and collaboration and stuff. So that's kind of really what the history of the company is. And then last year, apparently this is something they've been working on for a couple of years, but last year, like midway through, I think sometime in July or something, they launched their email service. And it's actually a full-on platform, so it's not an email client like you're thinking, which is my email is somewhere, and then I'm using Apple Mail, and someone else is using Outlook. This is it's a full package, it's a full platform, right? So you essentially migrate your email hosting to them as well, and then you have a front-end client that they've designed to take care of that email. So that's kind of step one of this process, which is why when I was telling you, like, we have to migrate to the system, that's kind of what I did when it came to the work email, at least.
So for all the people who are not technical, what this means that if you're using Google as your work email,
Yeah.
you're using that, which I know a lot of people do, especially for SMEs. They use Google as a thing.
So think of this as an
this is
equivalent of
replacement.
this. Yeah, I think of it as an
Right.
equivalent to that, in the sense that it's going to be a full email system as opposed to just a front end client to handle existing email. But
Which
if
is
you're
what
using
I have with mine, with
Correct.
like say with Bluehost.
Correct.
Is it
And
Bluehost?
then
Whoever I use.
yeah, and then similarly in terms of if you're using the personal service, then of course it just looks like an email client because you're not dealing with sort of your own domain and stuff. But the whole point of the work email is that you're dealing with the whole domain. Anyway, so the first thing I want to talk about also their first approach is the fact that they have a screener, and I think this is where actually the big kind of a little bit of an eye-opening moment for me, because one of my biggest problems is that I do get a lot of, for want of a better word, unsolicited email, right? Part of a lot of
me too.
groups, people sign me up on things. Unsubscribing from newsletters is tricky. It works sometimes. It doesn't work one time. I mean, I know that I'm on an email list. I couldn't find an unsubscribe button, so I just replied back and I said, hey, listen. Or either when I clicked the unsubscribe button, it said this email is not in our system. And so I replied back to them and I said, hey, listen, I don't know how long this take me off. And they're like, we don't know which email is signed up. You're just getting the email. And I'm just like, well, it shows me that it came to this mail. Anyway, long loop, I'm still getting emails from those people. And so what this service does actually is one of their first steps is creating like a lobby area. So think of Zoom, because that's people are familiar with that concept, is that when an email comes to you for the first time, it actually does not enter your inbox at all. It sits in the screener.
Right.
Which for me has been like a huge thing, because it has cut out so much email from my inbox. Because I've just started saying no. Instead of sitting and unsubscribing and figuring it out, the service is taking care of that for me. It's still keeping the emails. There is an everything list that I can go and check out. But in my inbox, I no longer see the emails that I say no to. That like, actually, this person is unsolicited. I don't want them anymore.
So at the beginning, though, you have to go through each and every one to say which one you give consent to or not.
Yeah, as in, I mean, you know, if you were...
Process.
As an example, I mean, if you were sitting in your inbox and you were just getting the email, it's just like that. You're going through every email, right? So what this does is my inbox stays clean, and I get an alert saying, hey, there are some new first-timers in the screener. And I go check it out, and I just read through the email as if. It looks like a feed, right? Okay. It's just one after the other, and I decide a yes or a no. And then in the yes, actually, there's a couple of different options as well. So I can say yes, just bring them into my inbox. But they also have two sort of additional kind of inboxes, but not really. One is called the feed. So actually, that's meant for like easy reading of newsletters. Right. So instead of you seeing an inbox, email, it's actually an ongoing feed, newsletter after newsletter after newsletter, or whatever you put in there actually.
Right. Okay.
So I use it for my newsletters, at least the ones that I'm like, okay, actually this one I do want to get news from, but I don't want it to clutter my inbox. So I dump it in the feed. It's not super important. I see it when I see it. And this is one of those things where you can check whenever you want to check. You read it as if you're reading a social media feed. You just go through your newsletter one after the other. You don't have to take any action. You don't have to hit delete. You don't have to do anything anymore. Right, and then they have something else called...
So will it automatically delete it after a while, or what will it do?
No, with this, it just sits like a feed. And it just shows me when I reach the end of it, it's like, okay, you're all done. And then it starts over as if it shows me like, these are the new ones you've got. And it does like latest first. So, I mean, but this is what happens, by the way, in reality with my newsletter reading anyway, especially the ones that I subscribe to that are either daily or weekly, is I actually don't land up reading every one. And then sometimes I'll see something interesting, but sometimes I'll be like, okay, I want to look at my newsletters now, and I pop in and I look at that. So it kind of fits into that kind of lifestyle where I check it when I want to check it, but honestly, it's not super priority. And then they have a third option.
How many newsletters do you get?
Quite a few, right? I'm subscribed to a few like podcasting newsletters and stuff. But again, a lot of the stuff I'm just saying no to now. So actually they're all going out. And now I literally have, I think, like 4 newsletters that are like, oh, I really want to receive this.
Okay. That's good to know. Okay.
Yeah. And then the third one is called the paper trail. So that's for all the stuff that's important, but you don't really need it in your inbox. There's receipts, bank confirmations, all sorts of things like that. So again, like I get email alerts from my bank about lots of different transactions, and honestly, they do clutter my inbox, and I just keep filing them away because what else am I going to do? So here now,
I delete them because we're with the same bank, right?
Yeah, I mean you can delete them if that's what you want to do, right? But for me, I tend to keep them, especially for like business transactions. I tend to keep them until like just in case I need a track of something or something hasn't come by SMS, because that happens sometimes. So what this does is...
because
and
I
also
just
like
check online.
Right. Or if you look at the other one could be like so purchases, right? So we make a lot of purchases with the company. We're buying equipment, we're buying other things, and we just get receipt and confirmations. I know
Right.
I want them and I may need them at some point, but I do not need them in my I know I made the purchase. It's not a big deal. So I actually have a default. It goes by default into the paper trail. I don't even see it in my inbox anymore.
Okay.
Unless I'm
Oh, that's
looking
good, I
for
suppose.
confirmation. So this is again like one of the three options under yes is yes, bring it to my inbox, yes, dump it in the feed, and yes, keep it in the paper trail so I can go and look for my receipt or whatever it is whenever I want. So that's kind of like the sort of pre-inbox sort of sorting system that they have in place. So this is one of the big reasons why I picked this up, because I was like, okay, I think my inbox needs to be a little bit nuked and started over almost. But I can't start over. It's very difficult to start over when I'm sitting in thousands and thousands of emails. And so this is kind of acting as a cleaner for me because it's making me take that decision once. And by the way, I mean, you
Right.
can always change it, right? So you can dump something in the feed and realize, no, you want it in your inbox or whatever, and that's fine. You can always go and can update something later. But what it's doing actually, and by the way, like the first, after moving to the system, I think the day 2, day 3, I was actually like a little unnerved because my inbox was empty. And I was
Oh,
just like,
wow.
well, this is so weird. Like, why is my inbox empty? Like, of course I must have gotten mails. And I realized when I go to the everything section that like actually it's like a bunch of newsletters and confirmations that have all
Right.
been dumped out of my inbox, and I'm not looking at them anymore, even though they're there.
Wow.
Which is like a huge like for me that was just kind of like I'm very unnerved by this development, but hey, actually it's kind of worked out well. so that's
Welcome
kind
to
of
my world.
exactly. So then the second thing is also in terms of the workflow and what they've done for that. So this is actually coming back to your theory of file, act, and toss. Now, as a system, that makes a lot of sense. But again, when you're drowning in inbox clutter, like it's a bit hard to do. So there are some things that they've done to kind of help that. The first is that they divide your inbox by new stuff and previously seen stuff. So that previously seen stuff is like this endless chain of emails that are just sitting there. I'm not filing them anywhere. I'm not doing anything with them. But I've already seen them, and I don't have to take any action.
Right. Okay.
And then the ones where I have to take action, there are 2 stacks at the bottom of the page, kind of, or at the bottom of the inbox. One is called the reply later stack, and the other one is set aside stack. So if there's something that I want to reference, some information I need, and I just kind of want to keep that available to me, I just put in the set aside stack. So it's out of my red inbox, goes sits in a stack. And the same thing with replies. So the big kind of problem I used to have as well is sometimes I have to reply to things. Most people take the approach of leaving the email unread until they get to it, or mark it unread again, because this is the only way you can do it, or you flag it in some way, right, to say like, okay, all the orange flags are things I have to reply to. So they've actually created a reply later stack. So any email I get in, I have the option to just hit reply now and take care of it, hence act. Or it's a file later system. So I'm like, look, this is a longer email, it's going to take me longer. I put it in the reply later stack, and then I can go and take care of it later. But it's one stack. I know this is all the stuff I have to reply to, and it's sitting there. And they actually have a focus view for it, so you can click focus and reply, so then it takes away the inbox and just stacks the emails one below the other with a compose window on the right of each email, and you just reply to the ones you want to reply to, like instant, quick, and get through your inbox.
This is very on the format of getting things done. So this is, you know, those ones that you reply later, and he has it, you know, on that process.
Organized and available to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's great for the people who use getting things done. This would help a lot and make it very easy, you know, to deal with these kind of emails. I mean, I put them into a folder when it's like that, but this is the same sort of process.
It's the same thing, right? So the idea of this system is just that, look, their entire, if you read their page and stuff, you'll see that, is that they're like, you know, we've developed all these hacks for email when we don't need to, right? Like, we've created this folder system. People use flags, people use mark as unread, so that they can reply to stuff. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. If the natural instinct for you is there, I can either reply to things now or I can reply to some stuff later, let's give you a stack of stuff that you can just dump it into right on your screen. And it's there at the bottom, you see it all the time. By the way, it doesn't again, it's not an out of sight, out of mind thing sitting in a folder. It's sitting at the bottom of your inbox in a nice little stack that you can get to later.
Right. Okay. Cool.
So that's another thing. And then the other stuff is really a lot of clutter removal. So which I really appreciate. So for example, threading is such a pain sometimes. So someone changes the subject line, or some people you have the re something, and you're just sitting there going what is this about? So there's a couple of nice things here. One is it gives you the thing to say override and merge threads. So I'm like, actually, this thread and this thread are actually the same email. They just got divided into two. I'm going to force merge. And it only happens at my end. You don't notice any difference. But for me,
Right.
it's one thread. And I have the option to change the subject line. So I can call it whatever I want. That's more relevant to
Right.
me, which is
Oh,
that makes it
wow.
searchable. And that's true, by the way, of any email. So any email I get from anybody, I can change the subject line within my inbox and maintain it that way. So I'm like, if someone types something silly, but I want to put the project name in there, I can do that. And it kind
Right.
of is, it's all at my end. It makes it searchable. It allows me to kind of just take control of my inbox again. So you're not seeing like all these multiple threads. And then they have something which is also kind of part of the screener, which is to say when an email comes in from a certain sender and they're sending you multiple emails for whatever reason, instead of seeing
Like me.
them as well, it's not the same like with you, right? Because with you we're discussing different things. That's why we have multiple threads.
Yeah.
There are some people that like, or for example, like I'm on a daily newsletter that I do want to read because it has important news. But, I get that email literally every day. And if I don't get to reading them, they're all sitting in my inbox as like 500 at the end of the week. And that's 5 lines in my email inbox, which means I missed something somewhere else. So what allows me to do is say, receive it in my inbox, but bundle them all together. So it's one line
Right,
in my
okay.
email inbox. Then I can click it and it shows me a feed of all the emails that are in that thread. But it's like I can do that at a sender level. So I can tell a sender, listen, this person emails me way too much. And it's always like random stuff. I do want to receive it, but just bundle it together so I can look at it. But I've done that with my bank statements, right? So even though they go in the feed, they go as one line, not
Okay.
20 emails.
Yep.
So,
Oh, that's
so again,
good.
it's a lot of like
Clever.
clutter clearing for me. Yeah, it's a lot of this stuff that it's doing is a lot of clutter clearing. And then the one other thing is on the collaboration side, which is the ability to kind of do things internal to the organization. So this is a work feature, so it's not available on their personal service. All the stuff I spoke to up to this point actually are available even on their personal service. So if you're just overwhelmed by personal email and you switch to them, you can get all of this stuff, right? So they have a lot of collaboration stuff. So if you're 2 people within the same organization, the one big thing, of course, is you can just share a thread. So you have a whole thread coming in. You don't have to sit and forward that thread to somebody. You can just say, hey, share the thread with them, and they can just pop in and read it.
Right.
But the big feature is something called collections. And a collection is basically a combination of threads which all deal with the same thing, but they're all different conversations. So for example, as an example, we're launching a new show, or by the time this episode goes out, we'll have launched a new show. So I have a lot of conversations around the launch of the show, right? And there were
Right.
different people, right? Because there's a marketing conversation, there's a PR conversation, there's a conversation with the host that's going on, artwork, video editor, like there's all of these conversations all relating to the launch, all relating to one project. And I call the collection, we call it by the name of the show, season 1. So everything is tagged with that. So it shows up in my inbox as regular, but when I click on it, it gives me what is called a collection view, which is essentially who are all the people with which this collection is shared, who are all the people involved, what are all the different email threads. So it kind of gives me a high-level view of that. It actually shows me all the files that have been shared across these threads in one view. So in case I want to go pick out a
Wow.
file, and that's all I care about, I'm not searching for them anymore. And then below that, it gives me actually a timeline, like by date, of every email and when it came in. And so I
Right.
can just flip through and scan through and see the whole history of all the conversations relating to this project or collection. And then the best part is that let's say, for example, I'm working on this thing, I want to hand it off to somebody else. I'm not forwarding them anything, I'm just sharing the collection with them. And they can see the full timeline, all the files, like we're not transferring a single piece of information and cluttering anybody's inbox in the process of doing it, which I think is very interesting. So I haven't really fully power used this feature, obviously, because we've only been using it a couple of weeks. I don't have a huge team.
Right.
So it's something that we'll kind of use a little bit more. But I've started using collections just to manage even just my projects right now. So for example, the launch, even though I'm having all of these different conversations, I don't want to merge all the threads together because that doesn't make any sense, right? Because I'm having different conversations. But the idea of creating like almost like a project view of all of these emails that are happening. And then, by the way, I can leave private notes for the people on my team, let's say, about something, to reply to something or whatever. Like it's just streamlining all of that communication without cluttering inboxes, which is the other sort of big sort of clutter removal feature.
This
that they
is
have.
great because, I mean, this would have been very useful for me when I used to be a solicitor and I was dealing with a
I
massive
would
deal.
imagine so.
Yeah, like there was the last company I worked for, there was a massive deal that went on, and there were lawyers from my side, lawyers from the other side. There were lawyers around the world helping with company formations. There were the internal people sending emails. There were, it was to have been millions of emails by the end of it, and
Exactly.
paper
Yeah.
and documents. No wonder I needed a holiday after that, and I was just so stressed. If remember the state I used to be in when I was doing that. So this would have helped a lot with dealing with all those emails, because there were
Yeah, and I mean, just
huge
imagine, like, you were like 3 months into the project, and then you had to bring someone new on board. And can you imagine, like, how do you share information with this person? Which I think it would be like a huge deal, because it's not like if you start a project together, any service will kind of work because you're all involved from the beginning. But what happens when you bring someone midway through? How do you take them through the history? And this view, and I mean, if you're on YouTube watching this, you'll see the view kind of. I'm sharing the view on the screen, but this view is kind of how you deal with that in this very seemingly efficient way. Again, like I said, we haven't broken into this a lot, but I'm already using it to combine different conversations that I'm looking at. So whenever I'm working in a certain conversation, I have a little tag at the top that shows me this is part of a collection, and I can quickly browse through it. And there are a couple other things as well, by the way, like, they do have a file browser, so all the files across all your email systems are searchable, findable in a file view. And then I can break it down and say, show me all the images that came from this person. So just like we do on WhatsApp or whatever. But it's, it's really true that a lot of this stuff is in email, and that's kind of really a big problem. And then the one last thing, and again, coming back to the whole clutter conversation, is that they do not believe in notifications in the sense of like bombarding you with notifications. So by default, this email app, notifications are off.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, by default. So you actually have to physically go and say, yes, I want to be notified of everything that's in my inbox. Otherwise, it doesn't turn on, because their entire theory is, let's keep notifications off unless you really want it, but turn notifications on for things that you need to be notified about.
Yeah.
So for example, when a thread comes in, I can just say, look, start notifying me about this thread, because I want to keep a track on it. I want to know. But I've realized, by the way, there is, I mean, at least in the line of work I'm in, thankfully, there is nothing that I need to know, like, as soon as it happens, because honestly, when it's that urgent, the person has invariably, like, dropped me a note on WhatsApp and been like, hey, I've sent this to you, right?
Yeah.
Or can you follow up on this for me? So there's already like all this conversation happening. It's been 2 weeks, I'm yet to turn on any notifications on my inbox at all. I mean, I do check my email anyway. It's not like I don't. So yeah, I've been living without email notifications for nearly 2 weeks now.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't have email notifications. I switched it off from my phone years ago because it was taking up too much battery and data as well.
Yeah,
we were, when you want to access your email, you enter the inbox. You push manually if you're on your phone. When you're on your computer, you switch on your email client and it'll come up. So you don't need notifications. I mean, I did in that job, because there were emails coming through at 2:00 in the morning, and you wanted it to know as soon as it came in so you could reply and then go to sleep.
Yeah.
But that was the kind of life that I led. And
but that's again, like, that's kind of like not great, right? Like, that's exactly it. So I like the fact that, but that's the other thing that I noticed. So I tried a different email client. I don't want to name them right now, but I tried a different email client that kind of does a little bit of sorting in your inbox, because again, that's my big need. And this is the thing, right? And then I had to go in and figure out like how to turn off certain notifications and not turn off the others, because they had different categories to say, like, this is from people, this is from a newsletter, this is from a notification, and then I had to sit and manually turn them off. And it's just one of those things. So I like the fact that these guys have taken the opposite approach to say, actually, we're not going to turn anything on unless you want it on, and then you go in and turn on anything that you need. So that's kind of the quick overview of everything that's happening.
So this all sounds really good and clutter-free, and it does actually sound something that I would like using to a point. But I'm just thinking about how much work was involved at the start to get it into the system that you now like, and that's the problem with we've had email clients before.
So far, I mean, the thing is that, like, there are still, by the way, I think it happened this morning. An email came in, and it was actually a first-time sender, even though it's been 2 weeks, because this service, like, it was a newsletter. I turned it off, but it was something that hadn't actually sent me an email in 2 weeks, so that's why it came in through now. But the thing I think for me is also one of those things where, like, one of the problems I used to have before is when I used to get signed up for these things, or these newsletters would come in, and as you know, right, we're recording right now, right? So I'm not looking at my email. And so a lot of times this will happen where, like, we've done recordings that are multiple hours long, or I've done interviews that are long, and you come back and your inbox is flooded, right? There's
Yeah.
just so much stuff in it that actually there is an important email sitting somewhere at the bottom and you haven't gotten to it because you're sitting and busy deleting, and trying to unsubscribe or trying to deal with whatever else is showing up in your inbox. And that's what's changed for me now, is now I know that if there's something in my inbox, it's because I have said yes and it's from somebody. And it's
Right.
nothing else. Because everything else is either already been siphoned out or is sitting in a screener. And I can look at it when I want to look at it, but by now it's been 2 weeks. Anybody that actually is valuable to me and emails me has already made it through my inbox. Anyway.
Oh, so have I made it through your inbox then?
I don't
Or
know.
am I
Did I reply to your email? I haven't seen your emails in a little while. Maybe it's out. I don't know. I have to go check.
Chirag.
No, of
So
course it has.
mean.
But no, of course it has. But that's the difference for me. Is I do not dread opening my inbox after a hiatus from it, whether it's because of recording or it's because I'm driving or whatever. Because actually my inbox is not flooded anymore in the way that it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I have that when I've been working, and like the last.
And you do
I
whole
worked
days,
for-
yeah.
Yeah, a whole day, and like the last 2 days it was 20 hours, and I was dead tired. So today has been the day of doing the admin, and I looked at the emails. So I think there was about 40 emails. A lot of it was they were like bank receipts and spam.
Exactly. Yeah.
I got somebody asking for money, which is the first time in a long time that's gone through into my email box. And I was
Right.
like,
Yeah.
at first I was reading it going, what is this? And then I was like, it's
this
one
is
of them,
spam, yeah.
it's like a Nigerian prince needs money. And I was like, how did it even get through?
So this is,
Yeah.
and that's again, I mean, there's other stuff about this email service I didn't get into because they're more like email things and not so much Clutter things. So that's why I kind of
Yeah.
left that out. But yeah, I mean, this is like their idea again is that this is beyond the spam filter because there are things. I mean, this example was obviously it was clearly spam. But as we know, a lot of newsletters and stuff, they would not be classified as spam by anybody because they're actually valid emails sent by valid people and or companies, and so they don't get marked as spam. I mean, I'll tell you the biggest one though. Honestly, like one of the big pains is somebody signed up one of my email addresses to a Google group, and I
To which
cannot
group?
get out
Sorry?
of it. To a Google group.
Right.
And I cannot get
Oh,
out
really?
of it. I don't know why. I cannot get out of it. I have marked the email as spam. This is in the past. I had marked the email as spam tons of times. I tried to unsubscribe. The unsubscribe email bounces. I've tried to log in. Because, of course, I do have multiple emails. So I've tried different combinations, but I don't have a Google account in that email address, so I cannot get into that. Like, it's so messy. And right now, I
Wow.
don't see those emails anymore because I just said no, because I'm not part of any other Google group and I don't care. And it
Who's
just
still in-
stopped showing in my inbox.
Who's
Yeah.
still using Google Groups? Is that still a thing?
It seems to be some kind of hiring thing. I don't really know. And whoever it is, if you're listening to this, you know why I'm no longer reacting to those emails. But yeah, but it's been one of those things, right? So those kind of like really kind of weird pain points that I've just been sitting on, and just the only way to deal with it, because there have been times where I've gotten like 7 emails in like 5 minutes because multiple people have replied to the group, and I'm just sitting there going like, look, I didn't even sign up to this thing.
Yeah,
And I can't
right,
spam
yeah.
it because no spam service is identifying Google groups as the spam email.
You know what we need though? This is a great email system, but what we need is somebody to stop these people selling our numbers and email addresses, because we get that, don't we? Like,
Well, but this system is meant to deal with that, which is to say, like, when someone unsolicitedly tries to email you, they get hidden behind a lobby, and you take care of it if you want to take care of it, or you just say no, and you actually genuinely never see that email again, because I do not check that everything thing anymore now that I trust the system.
so do
if
they
someone-
automatically unsubscribe for you?
No, it's just like, you know what, and that's the other thing, right? There is this sort of theory that people have, right? That people use these unsubscribe links as a way to know that it's a legit email, and then they keep spamming you from other things. And it's a mess, right? Like, newsletters are a mess. On a side note, by the way, this service is vehemently against newsletters. So they block every tracking pixel. It's nuts, right? So I mean, I'm a bit dicey on this one because, I mean, obviously, like, we also do a newsletter, right? But they have such a strong
And I do,
stance.
even though I don't do it often.
They have this
Sorry,
very, very
listeners.
strong privacy stance. So they block every mailing service at all, every tracking pixel, everything. So a lot of people use CRM services to send me email. I have learned in the last 2 weeks how many people do that, because it puts a big like symbol on the sender that says this sender is using a service that's tracking you and tracking whether you're opening your email or closing it or whatever. And
Wow, that would be MailChimp then. MailChimp would be
but lots of
happy
them,
with
by the
them.
way, actually, if you look on their website, they have a list of what looks like at least 40 different email services that they absolutely outright block. And they're like, we'll keep updating this list as and when it comes. So we get the emails, by the way, don't get me wrong, but it just blocks them from tracking whether you've opened the email or anything else. And they've even said that if you decide like you do want the email and you want to load the images, they proxy the images. So actually like the mailing service has no idea where that download came from because it comes from their servers. So it acts like a VPN almost towards your
Wow.
Your so they've taken like,
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to play out very interestingly because if more people take up the service, the mailing services are going to have a problem with this at some stage. And I'm curious to see how that plays out. But that's the thing, right? That's one of the reasons why they are a paid service because they're like, look, we're just going to take money from the users and run the service and not sell you to ads and not need ads to like make money. Which is, again, one of the big reasons why privacy gets violated on the internet. So, that's, I mean, like I said, these are all like additional like technical and security stuff, and that's really not what the focus was. But the idea of talking about the service was more about how it's helping me manage my inbox, how it's taken away a little bit of email anxiety, because again, I have not in the last 2 weeks received a single notification on my email, nor have I walked into like this crazy inbox that I don't know what to do with. So that's been really nice so far.
Oh, cool. Anyway, so that was brilliant. I might have to check it out myself, I think. It does sound good. So you'll have to send me the details later. And obviously, this is not a paid ad.
No, it's not. I mean, this is literally,
a love affair.
I'm paying for the service, unfortunately, but, I'm open to them talking to me about that. But no, jokes aside, though, no, I'm paying for the service as a company. And it's just something that I came across and I got in. Their work service is on an invite list right now because they've not opened it because they're scaling slowly. But I got the invite and that kind of triggered this process to say, let me have a look at this and see if this is going to really change. Because I can do it now. I'm a small company. I don't have too many people. So it was not hard to transition us over, right? Because again, that's a tricky bit if you're a larger company. So I figured if I'm going to invest in this now, let me do it now. And then I can always exit, by the way. Their exit stuff is pretty nice. They have a way to export all your data in like standardized format, so you can import them into any email service tomorrow. So that's okay. So I'd much rather get in now and kind of start using it and shift out later if I need to, versus, I don't know, having more people on the team and then trying to get more people to kind of change the way they think about email.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah.
Right, well, thank you so much, guest Chirag, for talking to us about your new email client today. Do you want to do the closing or shall I?
Oh, no, keep going. I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying just sitting back and watching.
I'm not used to doing the closing.
I know, that's why it's interesting. Guys, I would like to hear from you on social media, and I want you to rate her closing. Here we go. Take it away, Shelina.
If you liked listening to our conversation today, please press like wherever you're listening to us, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, where else? Angami, we're on everywhere. And it would be lovely if you could leave a review as well, because that does help us to get higher up on the radar for people to listen to us. Thank you also to all the people who do send us comments and reviews. We do love it. And if you want to know more about... Sorry.
And if you're listening to us for the first time, by the way, then the way to listen to us is you can either find us on YouTube or you can go to declutterme.com/podcast, where you'll find ways how to subscribe and listen to the show and get notified as well of new episodes.
I was going to do that all.
Sorry.
Yeah, and you can follow me on social media at declutterme. Anyway, thank you very much for listening today, and we'll talk to you next week about something. If you have any ideas as well about decluttering and organising that you'd like to listen to on the podcast, do send us a message and let us know, and we will bring it up as soon as possible. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go back to doing the closing from now on.
Oh, good. Really? Was it that bad? It
wasn't
bad.
That bad. But it wasn't bad. It was just but it was also like I couldn't resist the urge to then jump in and say something because I'm just so used to like finishing that sentence. So I think that's the problem.
Should we just say bye at the same time now?
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was terrible.